Well, hello, I'm Alex Robinson, and this is a brand new podcast called Think on These. You stumbled upon it somehow, whether it be through Apple or Spotify, or maybe you're even watching it on YouTube. First off, thank you for giving us a shot. Let me tell you a little bit about what this podcast will be about, where it is coming from, and all those good things on this promo episode. So this podcast gets its name from Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, where Paul tells the Philippians that they are to think about the things that are true, honorable, just, pure, lovely, commendable, excellent, and worthy of praise. That these are the kinds of things that God's people ought to be occupying their minds with. And so my plan on this podcast is to help us to do that in perhaps a different way than maybe you think. It's through interviewing saints. As you can tell, if you're watching, there's an empty chair and a microphone across the table from me, where I plan to have God's people that I know through different avenues come and sit with me and talk about God's grace in their life, how God saved them. I plan to get you, the listener, to be able to hear their testimonies, their stories of grace, and then ask specific questions depending on who the person is that I hope will prove helpful in helping us to think about these kinds of things. And so I plan to interview pastors, lay people, deacons, people of the community who I know are faithful followers of Jesus. All of these kinds of people who are serving in full-time ministry, yes, but also people who are just faithful Christians following the Lord, whether they work in a secular job or work from home or whatever it is that they do. I want you to be able to hear the stories of people that I know and I benefit from and who really, honestly, spur me on and encourage me in my own walk with the Lord. This podcast wouldn't be possible without First Baptist Church in Fulton, Kentucky. I get the privilege to serve as one of the pastors here. It is one of the great joys of my life to shepherd the people here. I've been here for a little over 10 years. Started out as student pastor and slowly we've eventually moved to a plurality of pastors, and I am one out of two. And the other pastor, his name is Stephen Cavness, and I plan to have Stephen on quite regularly, actually, helping us to think about these kinds of things, also just to hear his story and the stories of others as well. And so thank you again for tuning in for this promo episode of Think on These. In the title of the podcast is the word think. And a lot of times people think that to be a Christian, to follow Jesus, our minds are really not engaged. It's only our hearts or only, kind of that volitional part of who we are, but our minds kind of get put in the back seat, if you will. And some people even think that if you engage your mind as a Christian, you've gone way too far, that God doesn't want us to go that deep or whatever, however it may be said. And I hope down the road we'll have an episode dealing with that very kind of philosophy, that very kind of thought, where we'll hopefully talk about where we actually see otherwise in God's word. And this verse is one of those, Philippians 4:8. But anyway, I'm not here to preach at you, just here to introduce this podcast. And so I hope that each time we have this podcast, you'll come along and you'll be spurred on in your walk with the Lord. You'll be stirred up in your love for Him. And until next time, I pray and hope that you will think on these.